All right, today we're going to be talking about what's called a relation. And what we're going to do with a relation is we're going to see them as ordered pairs, tables, mappings, and graphs. And then we're also going to find the inverse of a relation. So a relation is a set of ordered pairs. Now the dot to dot that you did over the course of the last couple of days, each of those little sets are sets of relations. They are sets of ordered pairs, and what you ended up doing with them is you ended up graphing them. And they graphed and you were able to make a beautiful little picture for it. But that is just two ways to go ahead and show a relation. So a relation can be listed out like that, and it can be graphed. Now each one of those sets, and notice some sets were small like 3, and some sets were large with, 12 or 13 ordered pairs in them. Now how else can we do it? We can also use a table, and we can do something that's called a mapping. Now every relation that we have has a domain. The domain is all the x values, or all the possible inputs that we have. So what are all the x values that you just put in on that graph? And the range is a list of all the possible y values, or all the outputs, or what we also like to call sometimes the answers. Okay, all the, so x is on the x-axis, the left and right, and the range is on the y-axis, the up and down. Now when we do this, we must put them in the domain and range. We must put in order from least to greatest, and we can have no repeats. So if there's two 5s, we only put the 5 there once, because it's a list of all the possible answers. And just the fact that we have 5 on there counts for both of them. So we don't have to go ahead and repeat it. But we do want it in order from least to greatest so it's better organized. All right, let me show you some of these. So here's a relation. This is a list. Now we want to take this list and make a table out of it, a graph out of it, and a mapping. And this is what you're going to be doing on the homework today, is just going ahead and taking them and doing those different things. Now in order to do the mapping, I'm going to have to do the domain and range, and we'll do that when we get there. But we're going to start with the table. The table is probably the easiest one. It's very just simple to that dot to dot that we had. They were listed kind of on top of each other. The only difference is we just put an x and a y column. So I take this first order pair, it's 4, 3, so notice the first one, it's 4, 3. The next one is -2, -1, and I'm just putting them next to each other, making a column for all the x's and a column for all the y's. Notice I do not put them in alphabetical, I do not put them in order from least to greatest. I just go ahead and as they come, 4, 3, -2, -1, -3, 2, 2, -4, and then 0, -4, don't forget that one over there. Okay, so we just go ahead and just put them in order. Now, if you had put this one first and then this one second, that's okay. That's not a big deal. But that's a table. So a table is pretty easy. Now, we went ahead and with that dot to dot, we did graphs. So make sure that with the graph, we do our order pairs in the correct order. Remember, x is left and right, y is up and down. So here's the graph. So we go over 4 and then up 3 and make a dot. That's that first one. Then -2, -1. So that's to the left and down. And we can keep doing all those points and we get all these dots here. And this is what a graph looks like. Now we went ahead and connected the dots with ours the last day, but this is just that same thing. All right, so now let's do the mapping. As I said, to do the mapping, we're going to have to do the domain and range first. Now remember what the domain is, it's all the x values. So all these values in the front. So 4, -2, -3, 2, and 0. These are our inputs. These order pairs are like our answer. So if I say, what's the answer for 4, you would say 3. What's the answer for -2? It's -1. Answer for -3 is 2. For 2, it's -4. 0 is -4. That's our input with our output. Okay. All of our inputs, those first numbers, are our x values, our domain. So the domain is the 4, the -2, -3, 2, and 0. And notice what happens is we do put them in order from least to greatest. So what's the lowest one? Well, that's -3, then -2, then 0, 2, and 4. The range, now we're looking at the second numbers, our answers. And remember I said no repeats, so this -4, it happens twice, but I only need to write it once because it's all the possible answers. We're just saying that these are answers that we can get, not that these coincide with anything in particular. With domain and range, we're just going ahead and say these are the possible answers. So what are our possible answers? We have -4, -1, 2, and 3. All right, so what we do with a mapping is we do a circle over here for our domain and a circle over here for our range, our x and our y. If you don't want to put the x and y there, that's fine. And then we draw a line to connect each one. So 4 goes with 3 because that's the first order pair. The next order pair is -2 with -1, and we just connect the ordered pairs. Now this is done poorly because this should have been in order from least to greatest, and this one should have been also in order from least to greatest. They just try to be simple here, and if you did this on a quiz or a test, I would probably mark it wrong because they're not in order there. Please do that on your paper. All right, put them in the correct order. So the lines do end up crisscrossing and things like that, and that is just fine. Notice here that both of these point to the same answer. That's okay too. Two things can have the exact same answer. We've had things that have an answer of 5 before, and the next problem could have an answer of 5 too. Okay, we can always have multiple of the same answer. All right. So here's the relation. How is it as a mapping? Well, remember, mappings look like this, so we know these two. This is a table and a graph, so that's not even it. So look at the first one. We go 3 to -2. So 3 to -2. This one's backwards, so that's not right, so it's got to be C. What's the domain? Looking at the numbers, 3, 4, 5, and -1. Well, the -1's got to come first, and then the 3, 4, 5. So we're talking about A here. We don't even have to do the range, but the range is the -2, 2, 3, 6. So we have something like this off of a table. We can even do domain and range from there. So the domain is all the x values. The range would be all the y values. So the domain is 96, 99, 2002, 2005. And look at the range. We did put that in order too, so the 51 does come before the 60. So we can do that with any kind of table. And we can, of course, go ahead and just graph some data points too. So this point here, 1996, we can go over to wherever 96 is and go up to 1,000, or 86, I'm sorry, 86 to 1,000. This is 86, no, 86, that's backwards. 86 to 1,000, that one's fine. 90 to 17, 90 to, okay, that's got to be D. And just testing each point. All right, how do we do an inverse? Inverse is actually really easy. All we do is we switch x and y. So 0, 2 becomes 2, 0. -5, 4 becomes 4, -5. So let's do that. So here we have a mapping. Let's write the inverse of it. So this mapping, the first order pair, remember each of these lines is an ordered pair. So since we have 4 lines, we have 4 ordered pairs. So 5 goes to 1. So the inverse is backwards, 1 with 5. So write the inverse of this. This is not the inverse. This is the relation. This is the actual relation the way it is. So the inverse, okay, here we go. Sorry. I thought they had messed up. The inverse is taking all of these numbers that we just got and flipping them around. Again, they don't put them in order. I don't know why they're not putting them in order. We really need to do that. So 5, 1 becomes 1, 5, 7, 2 becomes 2, 7, 4, -9, so on and so forth. So what about this one? The first number is 3, -2, then -4, 1, and then 5, 2. So 3, 2, 3, 2, these all look good here. This one's not right. I can X that out. And then so to do the inverse, we got to flip them around. This one makes them all negative. That's not right. This one is the correct one because notice 3, 2 becomes 2, 3. And so we're talking about C. All right, what's the inverse here? So 5, -2 becomes -2, 5. Well, they all got that. 0, 3 becomes 3, 0. So this one's out. This one becomes 2, 1, or 1, 2. So that one's out. And the last one becomes 3, -4. All right, so it's D. All right. Just kind of going in order there. All right, and now making a table out of this. So the first one should be 10, 2. So 10, 2, we got it already. Only one of them has 10, 2 in the right order. And then here's writing the domain. So again, order from least to greatest. So we have 3, 2, 4, -1. So -1 goes first. And then here we have -1, 3, 0, and -2. So -2 goes first, -3. This one's missing the 0. We can't have that. And that's what I have for you today.